if I see value in something, whether it's a good conversation or spending time with a friend or learning something, the amount of work to get there doesn't factor into my willingness to do it. If it's a valuable thing, like if there's inherent value for me in it and inherent value for me and other people, then the work is just like, yeah, of course I'll do that because it's going to have this outcome. Ever since I was a little kid, like always a goal, always an outcome. And the way that I got by in life is like, if kids were bullying me, I just focused on other things. Like I wasn't the strongest kid, but I was the smartest kid. And I wasn't the best in school, but I was the best in getting good results beyond being lazy as hell in school. Like my hustle is the predominant factor that has made me able to outwork almost any bad situation.
Okay, welcome to episode 7 of the Codec Projects podcast. This episode, we are talking to Aram Arslanian. A lot of you may remember Aram from bands such as Champion, Betrayed, and The First Step. He's also fronting a new band called Change, who just released an amazing record. In his professional life, he has a company called Cadence Leadership, which is very interesting. I think a lot of you might get a lot out of this conversation, so enjoy.
So my name is Aram Arslanian. I am the CEO of a company called Cadence Leadership and Communication. We're a firm that works with companies all across North America, and we really focus on 3 things. How leaders lead, so like their skills as leaders. And that could be anything to, like how do they develop their talent? How do they think about themselves? How do they think about other people? How do they form their team up and create like a really strong culture? It has a lot to do with the psychology of leadership, essentially, and then putting those into practice. The next is leadership communication. So how do people present their ideas? Are they clear? Are they concise? Can they have a tough conversation while keeping people intact? Can they coach effectively? Can they mentor people? And the final one is leadership wellness. And that's about, do they understand how to have strong mental health on the team? Can they talk to people about mental health? Are they thoughtful of work-life balance? Are they thoughtful of diversity and inclusion and creating like a healthy, well team? So those are the 3 things we focus on. And I've built a team of 11 people across North America who come from different disciplines. So we have people who are therapists on the team, people who are social workers, people who are artists. We have a personal trainer. We have a yoga instructor. We have people who are specialists in voice, people who are specialists in the way people move, and specialists in the way people think. So it's been really cool. And we've developed something that I think is very unique because not only do we have that really incredible roster of great professionals, almost everyone's from the punk scene. So like a lot of people are vegan, vegetarian, a lot of people are straight edge. Everyone has a great taste in music. Everyone has great taste in like art and pop culture. So it's basically like working with a bunch of my friends every day.
Wow. I have so many questions about Cadence and how that all came to be. Because I know you from, I think I first met you when you were in Champion and I was on tour with Stand and Fight and then Betrayed and then The First Step and now Change. Basically the hardcore scene. How do you want to go into your background a little bit about those, about how you came to play in these bands and then also React Records and a little bit of that history?
Yeah, totally. So I was born in Montreal, and when I was 5, I moved to Calgary, and it's there that really like I had to learn how to survive. Is a tough word. Like it's kind of a ridiculous word because I moved to I moved to Calgary and my neighborhood I lived in was Willow Park. So survive is not the right idea. It's not like, it's not a Madball song, but more like I went from a really culturally diverse place. Like Montreal is very culturally diverse. And I moved to Calgary, where at the time, at least, especially in Willow Park, which is a suburb of Calgary, it was like predominantly Caucasian, European Caucasian. And okay. I'm like half Armenian and half Irish. So like, essentially Caucasian, but I have this unique name, Aram Arslanian. And my family were, my parents were both immigrants, and my sister as well, actually. So I went from like this really culturally diverse place where I was surrounded by people from all sorts of different cultures. They spoke different languages. Again, we were in a bilingual province where people spoke both English and French. And I was also surrounded by family members, like my extended family. And we moved out to Alberta, and we got no family. I'm one of the few kids that has an exotic sounding name. And I was one of the few parents that had like clearly immigrant parents. And it was as if like you had like night, and then you put like, or no, it was like the cashmere sweater on Seinfeld, and there was like the red dot. Like I was just like a target from day one. So me and my sister basically like got bullied extensively, like really intensely. And we dealt with it in different ways. And my sister kind of just went inward and got really into like artistic pursuits, but I went outward, and I really like tried to fit in with the other kids really, really bad. Like it was like the big struggle of my youth to try and find my people, like find where I fit. And like, when you're a kid and you're that kid, you just don't fit in, period. And I didn't fall in with like a lot of the stuff that the other kids did, right? So like I wasn't like a naturally athletic kid, so I wasn't going to excel in that way. I wasn't the funniest kid in the room. I basically wasn't any of the tropes that would make you safe in a group of kids. I was just this like awkward, weird kid. And I was so rejected that the only thing that I could find was skateboarding. And I found skateboarding. It was this kind of like, you don't need friends to skateboard. You can skateboard on your own. You don't need a team to skateboard. You don't need anyone's approval to skateboard. And skateboarding was like a big deal when I was in grade like 5 or grade. Yeah, it was starting grade 5. I got into that.
How old? I'm sorry. How old are you?
I'm 46 now. So I was born in 1974.
All right. We're same age. So, okay.
I got into that, got into skateboarding, and it was like I found my gateway. And again, it was like, Alberta and like Calgary, it's like it's under the snow for like a huge majority of the year, right? So it's like you really only have, and then like once the snow's gone, all the gravel is on the roads because they had to use gravel. So you wouldn't slide off the road with your car during the snow. So really like prime skateboarding time was like maybe 3 months. Yeah. Right. But like, I want you to think you could basically skateboard 3 months, but I was a skateboarder like 365 days a year, 24/7. Like that's the level of dedication I had to it.
I doubt there were many indoor parks up there at that time. I know there weren't near me.
There was one eventually when I was in like high school. I'll get to that in a sec. But like, so in like grade school and like junior high, like that was my identity, skateboarder. And then when skateboarding kind of went out again, like it was popular and then it wasn't popular. That's it. I stayed. But primarily it was like, I love the idea that you didn't need anyone to skateboard. It wasn't a team sport. It wasn't a class. It wasn't a thing. It was just basically an identity. Like, this is what I am. And I create around me. Like, I'll skateboard on anything. I'll I've got my own style. I've got my own things that I do. I've got my own music. And it was really liberating because like, I just didn't fit in. So from there, I got older, got into high school, stayed like skating and all of that. And there was this indoor skate park called Skate Jungle. And I spent a lot of time at Skate Jungle and I ended up getting exposed to all this different kind of music. I'd already heard about punk and hardcore through my friend Matt's brother, Toby. And we got exposed, but at Skate Jungle, I learned about a whole bunch of bands, and really like from there, it just like took over my life, like punk and hardcore. And that's how I got into it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, did they do shows at the skate park? Because I know a lot of the parks back in the day would have shows. And
they did. I never saw one, which was like one of my great bummers of life. Like I was 14 when they were doing shows there. So like I couldn't go. And then my parents let me go to my first show when I was 15. I went to go see DRI on their Thrash Zone tour. Okay. And I got my nose broken. First time in the pit, first time I got my nose broken. And from there it was like, that was it, man. I was in love. Like punk and hardcore became my new thing. Eventually, I moved from Calgary out to Vancouver with the idea that I was going to go to, well, I did go to university, but I sold the idea to my parents, like, oh, I'm going to go to university. But really, I just moved from Calgary to Vancouver to play in hardcore bands.
Right.
And then from there, I played in a bunch of bands. They're kind of like whatever. And then eventually I joined Champion, which is a Seattle band.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No. So it sounds like you got into it a little later. I mean, I had the same experience. In a way, I got into hardcore much later than my friends around me. They were all going to shows and things, but a lot of the shows around here were Sunday matinees, and I didn't want to go spend a Sunday with good weather indoors. I wanted to be outside skating or riding my bike. So it makes me feel a little bit better because I always feel like, we're the same age, and I always feel like, I don't know about you, but I just missed like, I mean, I could have gone and seen Youth Today and Gorilla Biscuits and Judge, but I decided that I didn't want to. And then when I finally got into them, it was too late. So I don't know if you had any of those.
Oh, dude, I got offered a ticket to this like legendary Calgary band called Beyond Possession. I got offered a free ticket to their last show, and I was like, man, I want to go hang out with this girl. Because I didn't know, man. Yeah. Like I didn't know. So I didn't like in earnest, like earnest get into punk and hardcore till I was like, I mean, I was listening to it around, I was definitely listening to it a lot in grade, well, I don't know, like grade 8 or 9 is like around the place. I'd say grade 8-ish is when I got into it. And then grade 9 is like when I dove head first into it, where I was like, it became like everything to me.
Right.
Yeah. And I was like then, anyways, I'm getting ahead of it. Like that's when we got into it. So eventually, out of university, I meet the guys in Trial, and I become friends with Tim Mack. Yeah. Trial breaks up. I roadied for Trial for like a 2-week West Coast tour, which is the first like real tour I ever went on. And what I learned on that tour, that I directly learned from Tim McIntosh, I got to say, like what I learned on that tour was a good foundation for how I apply myself to things even now, because Tim Mack had like a lot of, in a cool way, like lots of good expectations of what a good roadie would do. And he laid them out for me like really clearly. It wasn't like it wasn't hard to do well as a roadie for Trial, at least on that tour, because he was really precise with what he wanted. And I was very impressed by that. And I had a great time with them, did that tour, and I came back and I was like, that's it. I want to be in a band. And I played in a bunch of bands. Nothing cool happened. Trial breaks up. Tim joins Champion, who, funnily enough, I didn't like. I thought they sucked. But Tim was like, yo, I want you to join Champion and play bass. But you got to know, like, Vancouver to Seattle is a 2.5-hour drive.
Ooh.
But I'm the guy that does that. Like, yeah. I'm the guy that's like, a situation that requires great effort, but I think there's a great reward, then that great effort becomes nothing. Right. And I would drive to Seattle twice a week. I'd finish school. I'd drive to Seattle, practice, drive back that same night. I did that for about a year. Eventually, Tim quits the band, and I become the main dude in terms of songwriting, kind of running the band. And then from there, the rest is history.
Wow. That's a hell of a drive. You must have really saw something there.
Not necessarily in the band. Like I really liked, so my best friend, Dave Larson, lives in Seattle. So like it was a good excuse to be down there and hang out with him and Michael Ann, who is his partner. And they're two of my best friends. But yeah, man, like, I don't know. And I think probably you and anyone in your series can relate to this. Like, if I see value in something, whether it's a good conversation or spending time with a friend or learning something, the amount of work to get there doesn't factor into my willingness to do it. If it's a valuable thing, like if there's inherent value for me in it and inherent value for me and other people, then the work is just like, yeah, of course I'll do that because it's going to have this outcome.
It's not even like work. It's almost like what they call like a flow state, I suppose.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Absolutely. Like, and when things like cell phones came along eventually and like headsets and stuff, then I used that time in the car to do work as I went and did stuff. So like there's always a goal, always an outcome. Right. Ever since I was a little kid, like always a goal, always an outcome. And the way that I got by in life is like, if kids were bullying me, I just focused on other things. Like I wasn't the strongest kid, but I was the smartest kid. And I wasn't the best in school, but I was the best in getting good results beyond being lazy as hell in school. Like my hustle is the predominant factor that has made me able to outwork almost any bad situation.
Right. No, I hear you on that. I've always felt that I was just smart enough to know that I wasn't that smart and not really naturally talented at anything. But if I wanted something, I was willing to just bust my ass to get it, I guess, just to get better at it, whatever it was. But I want to ask you about straight edge. So how did that come into things? Were you into punk or hardcore before you were into straight edge, or was it kind of a natural progression? Or
I was into punk and hardcore a long time before I was into straight edge. So I got into punk and hardcore when I was like 14 or 15, and I didn't turn straight edge till I was like 21 or 22. And what led me to it is I ended up developing a problem with alcohol, and which got like really unmanageable around, I think I was 21 when it became really unmanageable. And that's, I'll talk about like my connection to you in a second, but like a lot of high achievers, I have this like really interesting dance with self-loathing, right? Because like my ability to do things and to see around a corner and to make things happen is as much based on vision, a vision of what could be and seeing ahead, as it is running away from stuff and like looking behind me and being like, I got to get as far away from that as I can. And like that like, holy crap, I can see this cool thing in the future. And like, holy crap, I got to get away from this thing. Like it's really propelled me, but it's caused me to have a lot of demons. And the way I dealt with those demons when I was young was alcohol. And it led me to be like, I drank a lot, I drink and drive, get in a lot of fights. Like I just was the guy that I sucked. Like I just was a shitty drunk. And it really hit me around 21 where I was like, damn, like I'm banned from all these bars. I keep getting into these fights. I walk down the street and like, I don't know if that person's like looking at me because I punched them last week, or if it's just like they're looking at the person behind me. And if you know me today, to think I was that guy is probably like, I can't even imagine that. But I was just like a very unhappy person that dealt with his stuff through alcohol. So, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, that's like what you just said is exactly what I was thinking. I can't even imagine you like that at all. So it's just super impressive to me that you are the way you are, knowing that you were once completely opposite almost. I mean, that takes a lot for someone to make the changes that you've made. It sounds like.
Oh, thanks, man. But it was interesting because for me, at least, it's like funny because I loved like straight edge hardcore. Like I loved all of it. Like, Youth of Today, Gorilla Biscuits, Judge, SSD, DYS. Like I loved all these bands so much. They were the predominant bands that I listened to. And of course I loved like metal and thrash, but metal and thrash were kind of like, I mean, my first big musical fascination was hip hop. And I loved early hip hop.
Okay.
Then I got into like metal and thrash, and then eventually like hardcore became my main thing. But like, dude, I would be listening to Uniform Choice and getting fucking wasted. So
yeah,
it was this weird thing. Eventually, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it's really not that uncommon. I mean, I know. I would see lots of people that I knew were the furthest thing from straight edge getting into straight edge bands. So it's not totally uncommon. But it always struck me as strange being,
Right.
who I am.
Well, and like, dude, like just for anyone listening to this, like, God, listen to any straight edge band and smoke all the weed you want. Who cares? Like that doesn't matter. But like, I like definitely like I was like really in, and I loved like I loved the bands at the time too. Like I loved Earth Crisis. I loved Strife. Strife were like one of my favorite bands. But by the time I was getting towards like being straight edge, a lot of those bands had broken up or gone away. Like not Earth Crisis, but like a lot of those bands had like started to phase out. And this new crop of bands in 97 were like popping up, like 96, 97. And I believe I went straight edge in 1997. What year did Back on Track come out?
97. Yeah. It's
Okay.
in the song back. It's 97. It's coming back strong. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I went straight edge in 97 then. And I remember like that one song where it's like commitment conquers all that stands in your way. I remember I had been straight edge for like, I don't know, maybe like a few months and driving and like that line just like hitting me so hard. And I don't know if this is true. You can correct me. Like, do you guys think the LP is not like that good?
I personally, and I think I said this recently to I don't remember who, but maybe it was with Joe Hardcore when I was talking to him. I feel as if it could be weeded down to a much better 7-inch than it is an LP. I don't think there's some of the songs, I don't think there's any bad songs, but they're not all the best, the top, I guess, if that makes sense, what I'm saying.
Well,
part of it, I was just gonna say, well, part of it was we were going through lineup changes. I mean, Anthony Popolato went on In My Eyes. He took a bunch of songs with him as we were, so we had to kind of start from scratch in some stuff. And at the time, you never feel like it. I mean, you never feel like you're putting filler in. And I don't necessarily think that we put filler in, but at the same time, I feel as if it could be a much stronger EP.
I don't know, man. I love that record. I love the way it looks. I love the way it sounds. I like the vinyl color. Like, I think it was definitely an important record for me because the thing that I liked about 10 Year to Fight is like, I know it like had the whole football thing, but you guys never came across like idiot jocks.
Well, I don't think we were. The funny part is, I mean, I know we weren't. So the funny part is that none of us, I mean, I think Ben, follows sports a bit, and Clevo definitely does, but for the most part, when we started, me, LaCroix, and Popolato were really the ones who really started, and Chris Patterson, and then we got Ben to join to play drums. We weren't into sports at all. We were skateboarders who got bullied by the jocks in school. So part of it was just us kind of. To me, it was kind of an inside joke, whereas we were taking what was special to these people who made fun of us and bullied us and just kind of flipping it on them.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that. And then it was just the metaphors just were so easy they just rolled out like so easy. Once we had the idea to do it, it was just nonstop. We just kept coming up with ideas, and it was just funny, and it was tongue in cheek, and it was serious, but it was a joke, but it was, so, I mean, we definitely were not jocks.
Yeah. Well, and so this is the whole thing about like, I guess what we would call like youth crew hardcore. I don't particularly like that term, but like, I've always thought like when people are like, oh, they're the Boy Scouts or the jocks. It's like, no, like what you just said, I think captured it perfectly. No, we took that trope and flipped it on its head.
Yeah.
Like I got beat up by jocks. Like I used to get picked on like mercilessly by jocks until I got like old enough to become like real funny and like I could outwit them and like make them look stupid. But like up until that point, like I fought a lot, and by the way, I didn't win. Like I was like, I should rephrase it as I got beat up a lot.
Right. It's not until I found that during I didn't really get beat up, but I didn't really learn to stand up for myself until when I was a little older, and I realized that as soon as you really stand up and against them, they usually back down. There was funny stories about skateboarding where one night me and Anthony it's a long story. I'll make it real short if I can. But the gist of it is me and Anthony Popolato and this was before Tenure Fight. We're out skating late at night in a parking lot. Car full of jocks comes up and they start fucking with us. And something just snapped in my head. It was just like, all right, fuck this. I'm not running anymore. So I stood there and I called him. I called him out. I'm like, get out of your fucking car. Let's go. And they wouldn't get out. And they went, and one of them actually leaned over and threw a tire iron at me. And just by pure luck, I wasn't quick enough to block it or move. It hit my belt buckle and bounced off of me, and I didn't even feel it. And it just freaked them out so much that they just split. And from that moment on, I realized that's all you have to do usually, you know? I mean, you got to be careful too, but at some point you got to stop running and stand up for yourself.
Totally, man. Well, first of all, like some ex-jock somewhere is like telling this story right now. It'd be like, yo, I threw a tire iron at this guy and he was like the man of steel. It bounced off of him.
Yeah. That was dumb luck. For sure.
Like half an inch down, we'd be talking.
Yes.
Sorry, dude.
Exactly.
Okay. Like what you just said there, that's standing up. Like you do that in different ways. And the way that I'd say that is like, as long as the value in picking on someone is taken away, as long as it no longer gives them something, but it costs them something, that's when people stop fucking with you. And it could be like jocks when you're in high school. It could be people in your workplace. It could be people in your community. People won't fuck with you if it loses its value and it starts costing them. And I'll just tell you that like this, like getting picked on and having to like outwork people and had to outwit people has been like a through line in my life, which played into Champion. It played into TFS, played into Betrayed, played into Change, and plays into Cadence. Is that like when you recognize that a lot of the system is based on punishing people, holding people down, keeping power in the hands of very few people, while like kind of bringing in everyone else to heal and bringing out everyone else to play a type of game. If you get really good at outwitting that and making anyone who comes at you, making it cost them something, the game changes. And that's where you learn how to like really empower yourself, how you learn how to like walk bold and do things that always lift you up and elevate you.
Do you have, I understand where you're going. Do you have any examples of anything in particular that to illustrate that?
Yeah, I'll give you an example from my career. You're only corny until you're successful. And then you're not corny anymore.
Okay.
Then you're like inspirational. And like, I remember when I first started doing the work I do now, and like dudes would be like, oh, you're like Tim Robbins, or like, you know, like they would like make fun of stuff that I would do. Right. And I remember being like, who the fuck are you to be saying this shit? Like when I transitioned from being a therapist and working in the social services. And so I was a therapist for 10 years where I worked with addiction and mental health. When I transitioned to the corporate world and I had to wear like a suit, like people would like make fun of me. Like my friends would make fun of me, but also like dudes who maybe thought I was like corny or whatever would make fun of me. And it fucking bugged the shit out of me, but I didn't let it show as much. I mean, I probably did unintentionally, but the thing that I always thought was like, hey man, at some point the tide's going to turn here because I'm going to bust my ass. I'm going to outwork everybody. I'm going to become successful at what I'm doing right now, just like I do at anything else I focus on. And at some point, you're probably going to be asking me for career advice. And I shit you not, man. Like 10 years later, having my own company, I literally have people who are like, kind of like being a little sideways or taking some liberties, legitimately asking me for career advice. Like, hey, what do I do in this situation? And it's all about, and there's two things that are important. Believe your own shit. If you believe in yourself and just believe your own shit and walk that fucking hard, do the work, but also be open to being told you're full of shit. Because if someone tells you that you're full of shit and there's someone you respect, you should listen to them. You should pay attention to what they say and you should adjust as appropriate. If someone else that you don't respect, or is kind of like not a false friend, but someone who's like really like quick to criticize others, especially if they're doing something that's like outside of the norm. Like, you know, like when someone, as soon as someone does something outside of the norm, they're going to start getting hated on, especially if that thing's successful. You should be open to those people telling you you're full of shit. And you should identify exactly what that is. And you should put it in your place in your mind and use it to fuel you into your next thing. And like, I don't hate on people for kind of like I don't hate on people for like treating any of the stuff that I did with my professional career with doubt as soon as I stepped out of the social services, but I also don't forget it. Like I know who were like the early believers and I know who were the people who were like kind of laughing. It's like, all right, like we'll see now. Like I run this company. I'm doing pretty well. I'm pretty excited and I will help anybody for sure. Like anyone who hits me up, I will definitely help them like for sure. But don't think that I'd forget that for 1 second.
Right. There's a saying, I forget exactly how it goes, but something about, the people and don't pay attention to the people in the cheap seats. If they haven't gone and done anything really themselves, like who are they to criticize? Those aren't the opinions you should value. It's the people out there actually doing stuff and trying.
I would add something to that though. So yes, to that, but I'd also add the people who are doing stuff, like doing real stuff, but aren't succeeding or,
it's not necessarily succeeding, but at least, they're trying. So,
I'd say like, I'm real thoughtful of, or I try and be real aware of like surrounding myself with people that I think are successful. And I don't think you find anyone who's like really successful unless they're surrounded by other successful people. But I don't mean successful like monetary. I don't think everyone has to have all these like high degrees. I don't think everyone has to be like a CEO. I mean, do I know people who are successful fathers or successful mothers who are like really dedicated to their kids and they're doing a great job? I want those people around me. Do I know people who are like really compassionate, like really good friends? I want those people around me. Do I know people who are super dedicated to, let's say their careers and are like work hard at staying level? I want them around me. Surround yourself with successful people, whatever it is they're being successful at, whether it's being a good friend or whether it's being a CEO of a company. Don't surround yourself with people who aren't successful, people who are shitty friends, who only do things halfway, who give up, who criticize others. Like if you surround yourself with people like that, you're going to be fighting an uphill struggle through criticism from other people for the rest of your life.
Right. Most of those people I find, if you start to rise, they just want to pull you back down to their level.
That's it, man.
They don't want to be lonely. They don't want you to leave them behind. Which sounds kind of shitty to say in one respect, but it's, if they're not willing to rise up with you, then sometimes, you got to know who's pulling you down and just gonna, cause you trouble.
Totally, man. And like, I don't think that sounds shitty. Like, so going back to the, like, don't listen to the people in the cheap seats.
Yeah.
Dude, I know people who are like fucking crazy successful. Like they've done well in their job, but where they're not successful is just being a fucking cool, like being a good person. Like, think how many people we know who are in bands and they suck. They're shitty people. I don't want that around me. Like, that's not going to make me successful, having someone like that around me. Like, I don't want some dodgy, shitty person. And I also say, like, that might sound ironic based on all the stuff that happened with Champion, but like, hard fucking lesson learned and legitimate lesson learned.
Yeah. So only because you brought it up, between me and you right now, if you want me to, I'm going to ask you something about that. If you don't want this in there at all, we'll just cut it out completely. But with that lesson, I mean, and the only reason I bring it up is because I really do respect the way you just moved on from it and what you've done since, because a lot of people, you can handle that a lot of different ways, like what happened there. And you can go into it as much as however you want. I'll let you speak to it. But a lot of people might have just kind of retreated and you know, curled up into their shell and just hid from the world. I don't feel like you went that way at all. Do you want to comment on that at all? Or
I do want to comment on that. And yeah, like, you know, like absolutely put this in. So for anyone who doesn't know what happened with Champion, I'm not going to get into the details here because anyone listening to this, I don't want to surprise them with a bunch of details that might like cause them harm. What I recommend is, like, if you want to know what happened with Champion, look it up. And, you know, I think it's an important thing to look up and understand what happened, because I think I know it's an important thing. And I don't want to just speak about it unexpectedly on a podcast, because that can trigger people, for lack of a better word. So I want to respect that. So let me talk about what happened and how I handled it. So when all of that stuff came to light, you know, there's a strong reaction from the scene, as there should be. And a lot of that reaction landed on mine and Chris's doorstep. Chris, the other guitar player, because Chris started the band and I was kind of like the main guy in the band that was like more vocal. Like I was the more vocal guy in the band. And like, I'm a big personality. And when I say I'm a big personality, I am definitely a dude that you're either like, I'm into that guy, like I like him and I believe in him, or you're like, I don't know, that guy's not for me. And I'm pretty comfortable with that, because at the end of the day, my base level of like insecurity of like needing to be liked has really actually dried up. And I'm totally cool with being like, you know, I still have days where I'm like, you know, I wish I was just like one of those guys that everybody likes. But you know what, man? Like, I've really. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, I think you are, but you might be selling yourself short. But
maybe I where I'd leave it is like, I've made my share of mistakes with like how I've managed myself being in like a band that was at one point fairly large within a scene. But I would say overall, I was always well intended. And so when all that stuff popped off, I mean, it's as serious as it fucking gets, man. It was really, really, really serious. And especially coming from the background as a therapist, where I had spent many, many years working with people who'd experienced sexual assault, I was, I don't know how to describe what it was like. It was like like an actual living nightmare. And my whole universe came unhinged. And you know, you have the things that happen, like people text you stuff and, you know, like, are you okay? Da, da, da. And I did retreat because I didn't want to take up space. Like like, how do we speak to that? Like, I didn't want to just be like silent during it. So we said what we felt we could say that was appropriate. And then you're not really going to have a seat at the table talking about how do we move forward as a community? Like, how do we bring some kind of healing to people who the victims of this situation? Like, what can we do? Like, we didn't have a seat at the table, nor should we have had a seat at the table. I think it's appropriate. But what we did have was like, we went from being a band that I felt was like this well-loved, well-respected band, like, and whether or not you thought the band was good, I think it's like we'd had like a good legacy, to becoming this reviled band. And I understand, like, fuck, the last thing in my life I ever expected to happen was something like this. And to see like people like burning your records on Instagram and stuff like that, it's just like, and to hear the stories was like of what happened to people. I mean, it's fucking horrifying. So there's nothing I could do, you know, like and I'm a very action-based person. Like, I couldn't fix this. I couldn't help people. I couldn't heal people. I couldn't bring someone to justice. Like I couldn't do anything. And that was like the hardest thing, because there's just, the damage had been done to people. And so I don't want to say I ran away, but it's the closest I've ever come to running away from anything in my life. And I definitely retreated into myself pretty heavily. Like, because, you know, I also kind of didn't know who I could trust, right? Like, because there's all of this like really heavy shit being said about me and Chris, but mostly me. And it's a bit of the burden a guy like me carries, where it's like, hey, if you're very vocal and you're out front, if things go bad, people are going to flip it on you. And so I was really pinned to a wall, and it was like super upsetting, incredibly humiliating. So I just retreated into myself. But at the same time, I was having problems at work, the company that I'd been in for about 4.5 years and that I'd risen quite high in. And I ended up getting fired a few months after that whole situation with Champion came out, and I got fired like really unceremoniously, like just like kicked out the door brutally. And my boss was aware at the time what was happening around the band. And like suddenly I went from like being this dude with this musical legacy, and like this kind of undeniable musical legacy, and then like a guy that was in good standing within a community, and then to having this job, to suddenly I was unemployed, and this thing that I'd built up over years was like the greatest shame in hardcore. Basically, there was a moment, October 2016, where I felt like my life, my entire life was over. And I know people listening to this might be like, well, what about all those people that got hurt? And I don't like, I'm not trying to like take up that space, and I'm not trying to compare what happened to me to what happened to them. Like both stories could exist. Like people had these really terrible experiences. And also like, I mean, I'm in this fucking crazy compromised situation. I don't know what to do. I'm lost. I've lost my job. And me losing my job is totally unrelated to the situation with Champion, but I just felt like my life was over. And it was at that point where I figured out who I really am. And so that's like, I'll go from there, but do you want to ask any questions about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just going to say, when something like that happens, I think there's a ripple effect. And like you said, what you had to go through with it doesn't take anything away from the victims of what, you know, happened there. But also I think the other people involved that were in his life in a way were also victims. You know, it's a different type of, but it, you know, I don't think anyone can say that you guys didn't have to go through a lot of bullshit that you shouldn't have had to. You know, if that, you know, I don't think that takes anything away from anyone else's pain, or, you know, it's not like one can't exist without the other. So
yeah, I think that's the way to say it. It's like both can exist. But like, dude, we're getting kind of, and like specifically me was kind of getting it, and Chris too, to a degree, because it was the like people, like, dude, the messages I was getting from people, the things people were like saying, like, I hope everyone in Champion gets hit by a bus. Like, I hope those guys die. Like crazy shit. Where you're like, holy fuck, like that's fucking crazy. I was getting like anonymous messages sent to me, like really fucked up shit. Like, how do these people even get my phone number? Like, this is insane. But then also like the flip side was like, yo, you're not having your boys back. You know, you threw that guy under the bus. Like, you didn't have his back. Like, you know, you guys are fucking cowards. And it's like, yo, I just want to turn this channel off. Like, how do I get out of this? But at the same time, it's like, it's not that simple. It's not a TV show. And this is like crazier than what I'd see on a TV show. It was so fucking bad. And I just like blitzed out. Like, I didn't crumble, but I came pretty fucking close to it. Right. And yeah, so October 2016, towards the end of October, it was like hands down the worst moment of my life.
Yeah. It's strange because I don't know if I feel like I because I'm not exactly I'll be honest. A lot of times I'm not exactly the guy with his ear to the ground when it comes to what's going on in hardcore, and I'll come across stuff or hear something a lot of times much later after it happened. And when I heard that what had happened, it was, I mean, I was like, I just felt that, I don't know that I really knew any of the other guys in Champion, but I came to know you pretty well, I feel like, just through some conversations. And I just knew that, I mean, I don't think there was any way that you would be involved or have any knowledge of something like that or be okay with what was going on, So I think anyone that knew you would know that. And then the flip side of you having someone's back, being accused like that, it was accused of those things, and that's not an easy situation, because of course you want to have your friends back, but not if it's pretty clear that they've done some really fucked up shit,
Yeah, man, it's a really, and like the complexity of the situation is like,
yeah,
it was big, and so like anyone who knew me, whether or not they love me or not love me, like knows me, would be like, nah, there's no fucking way. But people who met me in passing, or someone who had like a conversation with me one time, or maybe I said some fucking thing that they looked at, like, I'm actually literally referring to one person. There's like one person who took something I said 13 years earlier in just a super casual conversation. It was the only time I'd ever spoken to this person outside of a gig, and just like distorted it into this like insane thing. And, like, it's weird because like, you don't want to like dismiss people, because I'd say like the biggest soul searching I've ever done is like, I don't want to go on some marketing campaign like everyone in Champion, like we were good people and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, like I don't want to do that. Like what I want to say is like, some serious shit happened. And like, what is our role in this? Like, did we turn a blind eye? Like, I don't want to completely reject that idea. I want to understand what happened. I don't get to know who it happened to, because like of course you got to respect, people's desire to keep their secrets private, or keep their stories private. But like, I don't want to be like, no, like we didn't do anything, we don't know anything. Instead, I'd just be like, fuck, what could we have done better? Like, how could we have made people feel like they could have talked to us? Like, what role did we play in someone feeling like they couldn't speak to us?
Right. Well, and then also I think, obviously hindsight is 2020. Sometimes when you look back and you realize that, oh shit, how did we miss this? But when you're going through it, I mean, it's you don't want to think. When you're in a band, it's like it's like a family, and so you don't want to think that someone's doing something fucked up. So even if you, it's easy to overlook things or not really realize things when you're not, if you're not actively looking for them, I guess, and
Totally.
But it's important to realize this and know. It's important for people to know that, so that maybe they can try and be aware, I guess, of what's happening.
Yeah. And the thing I'd add to that is like, if someone's good at doing shit in secret
and hiding it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, there's a reason that you hear like, oh, we lived beside like so-and-so person and they did all these terrible things and we didn't know. It's like, how could you not know? You're their fucking next door neighbor.
True.
Because someone like that isn't like, broadcasting their shit. That's how it gets done.
Yeah.
And like, to anyone that's like, oh, like you threw that guy under the bus. It's like, what the fuck would you do? Like, what would you do in this situation? Like, you want to think of like, this is a guy that I've known forever and I've had my own levels of ups and downs with him. And like, if you know the story of Champion, like there's a whole other thing I won't even get into, and like the true nature of our relationship. But it's like, I feel it's like a bit self-serving to get into that. But basically what I'll just say is like, I'm not out here trying to market to anyone what a good group of guys we are. Make up your own mind. Do the research or don't do the research. Like, and actually, don't do the research. If it's an easier story for you to digest it that way. Like think the worst. I'm I'm not here to like market that idea. Like, I think people just need to do what they need to do with it. Like, I can say as a guy who went through all that stuff and has spent many, 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 many moons looking back at over years playing in this band and years with this guy and in this situation, there's no person on the planet who's going to second guess themselves more than me about that, who's going to like look at every single thing and like review it over and over and over again. What more could I have done? What happened? Where did it happen? And I don't think about it every day like I used to, but I thought about it for every single fucking day. And most of the day I was like halfway thinking of something else and halfway thinking about that for many, many, many years. And I feel like, I've done the job that I can do to like work through it. And I've made the changes in my life that I feel I can make to make sure I'm surrounded by people that I feel like represent what I believe in and that I do that for them. At the end of the day, that's the best I can do around a situation to learn and grow from that. And, I think it's like a really important thing to say, like, whatever people need to believe here, by all means, go ahead and believe it. Like, I'm not out here trying to shift someone's thinking on it.
Right. Well, let's leave it at that, unless you want to add anything to it, and we'll get on to something a little brighter.
Well, I think it's an important part of the story about what happened next for me and how I made everything else that followed happen.
So I wanted to ask a little bit, because like you mentioned, you were a drug and alcohol counselor, correct? For a bit. So how do you go from that to where you are now?
All right. So like, I've had this interesting path, and like, I definitely love doing stuff. Like, I love being in the mix. Like, I love being creative and bringing people together and doing ideas, but I also love helping people. Like, I actually, and whether it's like altruism or maybe I get an ego boost or whatever it is, I love helping people and seeing people be successful. Seeing other people be successful is like one of my greatest joys in life. And whether or not I was a part of their success, like, I just like seeing people, like anyone, man. Like when your documentary series came out, I was psyched. I just love seeing people be successful in whatever they're pursuing. And if I can help them along that way, awesome. So I'd become a therapist, and I did that for about a decade, and I, love the work. But I hit a point where I was like, yeah, I want to try something new, but I want to do something that lets me use my background in psychology. I was literally, and this is no joke, I was walking down the street with my dog, who's a dachshund, a wiener dog, and his name is Blue, and Blue is literally a blue color. He looks like a little Weimaraner. And we're at a light waiting to cross, and this couple comes up, and they're like, "Oh my God, we love your dog, da da da." And I was just like, yeah, whatever, I live in Vancouver. I'm not used to like just talking to people on the street. So I was like, Mm-hmm. And they were very persistent with talking to me. And I was like, well, these people are friendly. So I ended up chatting with them, and we have this great conversation. And I mentioned in the conversation, I was like, oh yeah, I'm a therapist, da da da. And the husband was like, hey, I run a coaching firm, and we're looking for a therapist to join our company to help us like restructure our coaching programs. Would you be interested in interviewing? And I was like, yes, just on the spot. Yes. And if I'll say like one of my greatest strengths as a person is I have no problem taking the leap, and I do not need to know where I'm going to land. I will figure that out midair. And so I was like, yes, I'll do that. I go in, and just to set the stage, I had never worn a suit outside of a wedding or a funeral in my life. I didn't even own dress pants. I had to borrow dress pants from a friend of mine to go to these interviews.
Right.
I go in, crush it, get the job. And I joined this company that I will say in retrospect is corny as fuck. Like they position themselves as like a leadership company, but it's like a public speaking company basically. Okay. And I joined this company, and as soon as I get in the door, they're like, hey, don't tell anyone you're a therapist because it's going to freak them out. Like, don't tell any of our clients you're a therapist, and never mention you played in punk bands ever. And in fact, your tattoos kind of show when you're speaking. So we want you to get specially tailored shirts so that they have like longer sleeves. Nobody can see your tattoo. And I remember thinking, I was 2 weeks into this job, and I was like, this is an absolute clown car. The guy who owns this company He's a rich kid. And by the way, you can grow up with money, and I'd say the way I define it is there's like rich kids grew up with money and they don't understand how to deal with people like properly. And then there's people who grew up with money and they were taught the proper values of how to interact with people.
Right.
This guy was just like a rich kid. His mom had founded the company. She was a nightmare. And as a result, he was a nightmare. And the company was just about selling their like lame ass product to make them all rich. And they did something that I feel is like a breach of trust, which is like, yo, you're not like a leadership firm. I'm like, leadership is like a really important thing to talk about because, I mean, dude, I imagine you've had a shitty boss before. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
And what did that do to you?
It made me leave. You know, I definitely did not want to follow that person. That's for sure.
Having a shitty boss can ruin your life. It can ruin your psychology and make you depressed for huge parts of your time. It can ruin your personal relationships. Like, leadership is super important. Leadership literally changes the world. And I don't just mean in companies. I mean, being a leader, like what you're doing right now with your series, like that's leadership. Like, you need to take this shit seriously. And once I realized what their game was, it was just like, we're literally a public speaking firm. We teach people how to give presentations. And it was all in the name of their program, speaking as a leader. It wasn't be a leader. It was speaking as a leader. It's like, this is clownish. Like, this is about getting people to be bad actors, and I'm not going to do it. So after working there for a while, I just started being a therapist in the corporate world. Like, basically, I had my own client base. I developed my own book of business, and I built a business within their business without telling them. Okay. And I just did my own thing. And I went on, and once in a while they'd be like, hey, are you like following our program? And I'd be like, oh yeah. And I would just kind of blow them off. And at one point they realized this dude is just doing his own thing. But I had been driving so much revenue that they were like, oh, you know, like, we'll just kind of leave it alone. So I went from being like just a frontline coach to becoming more of like a high-end coach, to eventually they promoted me to the vice president, and I was running Western Canada and the US region. I had an office here in Vancouver reporting up to me. But like, wow. I hated the boss. Always hated him. I just thought he was a greedy, unethical, insecure prick. And we would get into a dust up about a couple times a year. But the funny thing was, I was becoming a shittier person. Because like, I was making way too much money. I basically was working in this guy's company, and he was this like shitty person. But like, I was in his company and deeply disrespected him, but was making all this money and making all these moves. That was like, it was pretty dishonest of me to be in a space like that, because I clearly thought he was like a clown.
Right. And
I also was just like unhappy, just being uncool, like not being good to like, you know, my friends, not being good to my family. Like, I just became that guy who was so unhappy in his job that he just got shitty. And I started to realize that I was in this like really unhappy relationship for a really long time.
I'm sorry, like, what year are we talking here? Just to put things in context.
I started working there, I think 2011. Yeah, 2011. So I worked there for about 5 years.
Okay. All right.
So like, I probably started to not like who I was around 2014. Like, I started to realize like I was not living the life I wanted to lead. Like, I was successful. I was making a ton of money. I had a lot of responsibility. I had a big title, but like, I wasn't playing music, or the music I was playing was fucking whack. I wasn't plugged into my good friend group. I was just like really unhappy. And in a really weird way, it was like, although it was a fucking nightmare when it happened, getting fired was like one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I made just enough money that I was never going to quit that job. And I talked a big game about starting my own company, but like, I'd become that dude where I just made too much money. I had too much like comfort in my life, you know, like I didn't have to struggle anymore. And because I didn't have to struggle anymore, I just became weak. I became a weak dude, like morally weak, ethically weak, like intellectually weak. And I was like the unhealthiest of my life mentally. Well, it got worse after the whole situation with Champion, but I was like really depressed, physically unhealthy. Like I was like wickedly overweight, and I just wasn't even thinking anymore. Like I became like a pale version of myself. And then I got fired, and suddenly I had to like really bust my ass, and it changed everything.
And so just to put things in context a little bit with, when was React Records? Like, when did you start that? And I know this seems completely like out of left field and not related, but in my mind, it's kind of goes along with, like that seems like something that would have kept you a little bit more grounded. And I thought you had been doing that up until pretty recently, but maybe that's just my old man brain. Was that kind of going, like, when was that?
So I started React in, I think 2007 or 2008. And I wrapped up my part of React around 2012.
Okay. So you weren't really involved with anything that had really been your life for many years. I was doing this band called Keep It Clear, but we were infrequent because our drummer had moved, and so we weren't fully back on. I do remember that a little bit.
And I love Keep It Clear. Like I love those dudes. I love that band. I was doing True Identity, and True Identity was a band with the guy from Champion. And like that band, man, like I kind of cringe when I think about that band, not just because of the situation, but because like it kind of captured my mindset really well, where it was like I was trying to do a band because I was trying to make, I don't know, I wanted to do a harder hardcore band because like I'd been in Champion, and I felt like Champion was like the whole melodic hardcore thing. I wanted to get away from that, and I wanted to do something that was like more hardcore, but like, you know, like hardcore, like that would be in the realm of bands that we're used to. And it was just unnatural. It was forced. It was fucking whack. Like that demo is like, I'm embarrassed by it. But at the same time, I was also doing Union of Faith, which was cool. Right. So this was this kind of like point where like I realized I was super unhappy, and I'd been in a relationship that was unhealthy, and I'd made a change, and I was like a single dude. I started playing Union of Faith, which was like largely positive for me. Keep It Clear was really good. It was a lot of fun, but True Identity was like just forced, and it wasn't like an organic thing where I was like, oh, I want to play music that I love. It's like, it was almost like, oh, I want to make a statement, and it was whack. Like it just wasn't cool.
Right.
So again, I was like, I guess I was like kind of scrambling, trying to figure out who I was like as an adult. Okay. And I'd really lost my path. And then all this stuff happened in 2016, which was like the biggest moment of like figuring your life out.
Right. And it could have totally driven you further out and away from the, everything.
It could have, but like, so the day I got fired, I was already like super fucking depressed and like already really bummed because of the whole Champion thing and like major anxiety attacks and all that kind of stuff. And I knew it was coming. I'll say this, like my boss was not necessarily wrong to fire me. Like he was wrong because he fired me for essentially what were like really just nonsense reasons. But he was right that he knew he had a guy working for him who didn't respect him and thought he was a clown and thought that his business was built on bullshit, which it was. I can't speak to the company today. I can just simply say like I viewed my experiences in that company, my experiences with him, my experiences with his mother were horrible. They were just shitty people, and their company was like based on like just like kind of clever marketing, right?
Yeah. And
so when I got fired, man, you know what? That's probably the first thing he did that I really respected, because like it's like, yeah, I've been clowning you for a long time, and shame on me for staying in this company with this guy that I didn't respect. Like that's like a good sign that like your allegiance at that time wasn't based on believing in something. It was like, hey, if you pay me enough money, I'll work for you. And it's such a good moment of real reckoning where it's like, I'm not the guy that I thought I was, and I think, some people have this experience, some people don't, about that kind of moment. But I got fired. I got off the phone. I went and shaved my head, took a shower, and I started calling people. And it was like a real Jerry Maguire kind of moment. And I just called people and I just told the truth. It's like, I just got fired. And I called all my clients and I didn't solicit them. So I wasn't like, I'm going to come work with me. I just said, hey, I got fired. And then people said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. And their response was, if you start a new company, I want to work with you. And 80% of my clients came with me.
Wow.
When I got fired. So I started a company that about half an hour after I got fired. I didn't have a company name, but I had people who believed in me. And that injection of like belief during that time is probably what saved me. And the reason I had that belief is because despite being super unhappy, despite kind of like becoming this like version of myself I didn't like, my client work was always about helping people. And I was always true to my mission of helping people. And that belief that I had mirrored back to me in my time of greatest despair, where I just thought I'm the biggest piece of shit on the planet, I'm lost, my world is coming in. Had those clients not said, we believe in you, I don't know if you and I would be having this conversation now.
So that kind of leads me over to something that I've been thinking about for a bit, and I wanted to ask you about expectations. So, and not the Youth Today song, not specifically, anyways. But but there's a lot of truth to those lyrics. Expectations in yourself, expectations in others, other people's expectations in you. What are your? It seems like you struggled with a lot of those different things in that period that led to Cadence. Do you want to speak to any of those things at all? Or do you have any thoughts on how that shaped things?
Well, yeah. And like, I want to be something that I promised myself, like kind of post this whole champion getting fired thing, is like, I'm just not going to hide. I don't want to hide how I feel about stuff, because I think I spent so much time, even as an adult, trying to fit in, that like, if I can spare someone the pain that I felt and like the misery that I went through around that stuff, I want to do it. So I'm going to be vulnerable and open. So like, when I talk about stuff like this, the reason I talk about it is like, if someone out there is like, holy shit, I'm like in my 30s and I'm trying to fit in with people still, like I'm still playing this game, it's okay. Like, I think a lot of people could look at me and be like, damn, that guy's successful. And I can say quite comfortably, in a way that I believe is honest and not intended to be arrogant, I can quite comfortably say like, yes, I am actually successful. And you can become successful and hate yourself. Then you're not really successful. Or you can become successful and feel good about yourself, like legitimately feel good about yourself in a healthy way. Then you're really successful. And I've finally been able to achieve that second one. But it goes back to expectations. And that's why I try and be so open about this stuff. So I grew up like, bullied a lot, but I also didn't have a close family because we'd moved away from our extended family. We didn't have that support. There were like major mental health concerns in my family. It was kind of like growing up in a house where there were like 4 individuals, and the 4 individuals definitely cared about each other, but they couldn't engage the way a family could engage. And so I grew up in this like really the sense of just feeling like alone and like isolated. And, there's like a kind of thinking, like a kind of person that when they're like 10 years old, they're terrified they're going to die alone. Like you're already 10 years old and you're worried about that. Right. So like I had these like intense expectations that were based on perfectionism. Like I had to look a certain way. I had to like, and like, if you look at me, I've got like a big nose, I'm bald. I kind of like got like weird teeth, like I don't look like everyone else. And I would just be obsessed with how I didn't look like everyone else. And like, I'd have to like dress like everyone else. And I had to like present as being like tougher than I am, or like being more down than I am. And I'd have these expectations that would cause me to be like constantly uncomfortable. Like I was in this space where I had to like be perfect at all times. And if I wasn't successful at something, or if I wasn't socially accepted, or if my band wasn't good enough, or whatever it is, it was like not just I failed at a thing, but it's like I'm a bad person. I've failed as a human being. And that goes a lot back to like how I grew up and those things. And I really only came to like deal with that as I got like this bottleneck of shit that happened in 2016. And having proper expectations and being kind to yourself is the greatest gift that anyone can give. Like I have very high expectations of myself, but I've also learned the biggest expectation that I have is being merciful to myself and kind to myself. Like I expect myself to be kind to myself 100% of the time. And kind to yourself isn't just giving yourself excuses. In fact, it's the opposite of that, but it's about driving your performance, driving your behaviors, all of that in a way that you expect the best and you respect that if you're going to fall down, you're going to help yourself in a gentle but firm way get back up.
Man, I can relate a lot to what you're saying about trying to be a certain way or behave a certain way or hide parts of yourself as a youth, but definitely also as an adult. I mean, I haven't had a lot of real jobs, I would say, in the past 20 years because I'm just a terrible employee and I just always end up leaving and trying to do my own thing. But the jobs that I've had, I mean, I have one tattoo, but I would end up wearing long sleeve shirts in the middle of the summer when it was 90 degrees out, when I very easily could have not done that just because I didn't want people to know that I had a tattoo and ask me questions about it. It was very, very guarded about a lot of things. And I haven't really, I mean, that took until really only a couple of years ago, I would say. You know, I was just where I felt like, you know, like just fuck it. I don't care anymore. You know, either if they don't want to hire me or deal with me because of who I am, that I don't really want to work for them anyways.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a lot of your message, what you've been saying. And I remember when I became aware of what you were doing with Cadence and looking at some of the things you would put up on Instagram and then listening to some of your podcasts, it was like, wow, I really wish that I had heard this message years ago. I had kind of already sort of come to it on my own, but I think what you're doing could be hugely beneficial to people who are still struggling in that area.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. And like, I just, you know, like I can't get into a lot of the details of what I do. So like, it's kind of cool because sometimes I can be like, I literally can't talk about like X, Y, and Z. And it's kind of fun to be in a place like that. But our team does a lot of stuff. And our team mission is very simple: reduce suffering, increase empowerment. And so reducing suffering, like, man, if you've worked for someone who's a shitty boss, you're probably suffering. But flip it. If you're a shitty boss, you're suffering too. It sucks to be a boss that knows that they're shitty or that they're petty or they're small-minded or any of those things. So I want to reduce suffering. If someone's not good at communicating, like they can't make themselves heard or they're not good at listening, they're suffering or they're causing suffering. If you work in a company that has shitty culture, you're suffering or you're causing suffering. You know, if you work in a company that's racist or sexist or I mean, every structure in our country has those elements anyways, but like where it's like predominantly that way, you're suffering or you're causing suffering. And like, I want every day to do my best to reduce that. And I also want to empower people. I want people to feel like they've taken a little bit of weight off their shoulders. They believe in themselves a little bit more. They trust other people a bit more. They can reveal a bit more who they are. They can do those things they weren't sure that they could do. They could achieve that thing they didn't think they could achieve. And the only way we do that is by engaging. And that's why I've built the team this way. And that's why I do what I do. And I'm very fortunate to do this. I work at like the highest levels of companies. I work with CEOs and their C-suite. I'm involved in a lot of really intricate stuff that happens at major levels of huge companies in North America. And I am very lucky to help people form up their companies and their leadership teams and how things happen in a better way. I learned that through punk. I learned take your space and believe your shit. And if you believe your shit and your shit is honest, other people are going to believe it as well. And that's a huge gift. And that's how I walk it with Cadence.
And I love the fact that that's right out there front and center. It's not even like you're just not trying to hide it. It's you waving that flag, because it's real. I mean, that's a lot of what is driving me to do the things that I'm doing. It's recognizing we've learned all these, I don't know, skills or methods or ideology. What's wrong with me? I can't speak right now. You know what I'm trying to say. It's just that whole the DIY punk mentality of not taking the bullshit, getting it done, being real. I don't know. I just love that.
Well, dude, punk is a culture of high performers, and like the most, yes, like you can be like, oh, like Led Zeppelin recorded like this record in 2 days, and like they did all this stuff, and it sold like multi-million dollars, records, blah 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 blah. It's like, yeah, that's Led Zeppelin. That's like that band and like a handful of other bands. Let me show you literally thousands of bands who've put out the best record you're ever going to hear, toured the country, made friendships all over the world, changed people's thinking on a shoestring budget and very, very little talent. Like, we aren't talking about the icons of music. We're talking about the icons of hard work, figuring it out, and diligence. Like, punk and hardcore is like, it's a really miraculous thing, like in general. But what I also say is it's got like a lot of like weird toxicity. Like what happened with Champion is like a good example of that. But like, it's a really high performing culture. It's people who just have vision or aren't afraid to push. But it is extremely based on stay in line, do the things that everyone else does, fit in. And as much as it says it's not that, it's actually like really heavily like that. And you see all this great effort and all these incredible artists kind of have this race to the bottom mentality where they want to stay in the one place where they're successful. And man, like the punk and hardcore scene is full of geniuses, I think, but they're not taking that thing and applying it elsewhere. And if people do that, or if people get too successful, you see the animals come out, like you see the sharks come out and like attack them. It's like, what I would love to see people in punk and hardcore to do is take the stuff that they've learned and stop putting that energy in like weird scene politics or like who controls what fest or who's this or who's that, like any of that bullshit. Because all of that is like, nobody's going to give two shits 20 years from now. Right. You could take that energy and you could build a better life for yourself and a life with someone, and you could build a better life for yourself and impact the lives of other people. But you have to leave the safety of making all of your profound efforts in punk and hardcore. It's safe to make your profound efforts there because you're going to have an audience who gets you. You make your profound effort. You take that same energy, that same intention. You do it somewhere else. I promise you are going to see results. It's going to take a while. You're going to have to take some shit. And the people who are on the left and right of you from the culture are probably going to make fun of you a little bit. But if you have vision, you have guts, you have courage, you are going to make a difference.
Right. No, it's like preaching to the choir. But it's and I agree. In a lot of respects, punk and hardcore can be very unforgiving, and so can the skateboarding and BMX cultures as well. Anytime you try to stray outside of the lines that are established, if you try to mix things too much, or I mean, hell, even if you just want to like make your money back on something, sometimes you can catch a lot of shit for that. And I think you're right. If you take that ethic and what you believe and really apply it, you don't have to abandon anything, but you can start to work that and apply it outside of that little scene a little bit and really make a change. You can really make a difference and start to, I've seen that even just on a little bit with Don't Stand in Line on it. Like some of the responses I've gotten from people And I got one today, actually. Someone wrote me and said they just stumbled upon it. They don't even come from punk or hardcore or BMX or skateboarding. They stumbled upon it and could relate to what those four guys were saying, and it in a way that sounds life-changing almost. It's humbling to me, and I didn't even expect that. But I think, I don't think I'm unique as to what can be done. I think you're right. I think apply what your knowledge and your skills and your heart and that work ethic to something a little bit bigger than yourself, and you can really you can make a big change.
Dude, you can, man. And it's like, for some people, like let's say Sonny from Hate 56, it's going to be within your world. But I was talking to Sonny today, and like his stuff is like undeniable. He's done such cool stuff, but the barriers and the backlash he's faced. I talked to him a lot today, and I challenged him about taking some of those lessons and applying it to a different thing. And I won't get into it because I don't want to blow up his spot, but like we can play in the same lanes. And you know what? Like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, but he's actually still in a way doing that with a lot of his social justice stuff. I don't really get into that much in the documentary. I kind of regret that in a sense, but because I don't think I realized how much of a thing it was as part of what he's doing, really. But
yeah,
but he really is making a difference there. Like, I
mean, huge difference, man.
I mean, and you can see it just in the last few months with, some of that footage, the first-hand accounts of, that what he was part of in some of those protests. I mean, he's bringing a lot of stuff to light. So, yeah, dude, and I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Well, no, but like, dude, yes. Like, and so what we were talking about was kind of an extension of that stuff, the social justice stuff. And like, it's interesting because like, he's an example of someone who's like, he's become so successful that he's been able to shrug off the people who are trying to pull him down. And like, that dude got more hate than most people. And like, I think there's all sorts of wild shit behind that. But like, I'll just say that there's like a whole like social structure in hardcore that wants to maintain its power. Right. And like, we kind of decide what's cool. We decide who gets what. And that's fine. Like, that exists everywhere. I mean, it exists in all things. In a corporation, it's formalized. It's called the C-suite. In hardcore, there's like a hardcore C-suite. And you want to tell me like those people aren't concerned with maintaining power? Of course they are. That's what most people are concerned about when they have power, is maintaining it and making it bigger. And the shit that I saw Sonny go through, some of it was earned. Like, he created bad situations for himself. And we talked about that today. But a lot of it was a guy doing something who refused to come to heel, who refused to like bow. And I have eternal respect for Sonny for that, and from learning lessons and like in changing and growing. But also, he's become undeniable at this point. Like the people that try to hold him down, they don't have sway anymore. He's become a force of his own. And for anyone out there who's trying to take like things they've learned in punk and apply it, as soon as you get like legit successful, you're going to have people who are going to pull you down. And if you're someone like me and you're really susceptible to like being made to feel bad about yourself, like I am so willing to make myself feel bad that anyone who wants to make me feel bad has already got a leg up, because I'm willing to do that work for them. If you're someone like me, as soon as you start getting successful and you get that negative feedback, it's going to fuck you up. And the best thing you can do is develop a discipline of self-mercy. Like, give yourself some fucking mercy, because if you want to be serious and you want to take this stuff and make a real impact, you have to find a way to outlast, outwork, outmaneuver, outperform the people who are going to try and hold you down, because it's going to happen. But once you get past it and you hit a point like Sonny where you're undeniable, that shit can't touch you anymore. And the best way to get there is learn some lessons and be kind to yourself.
That's great. Those are good words. I don't want to keep you too long, but I have a couple almost kind of selfish questions I want to ask you, just because I got you on the line. And I've written lots of lyrics in my time. Not all are super original. A lot of similar themes, we'll just put it that way. And I know you've written quite a lot of lyrics, probably most better than more creative than I have. But to me, I've always, and I don't think I even came to this realization until recently, and maybe it's not the same for you, but for me, I always, let me back up for a second. It kind of ties back into what you were saying about being corny until you're successful. I look at some Gorilla Biscuits lyrics, and if you took this music away and you just read that without knowing anything, it's almost like you're looking at like a children's book or a nursery rhyme, just like, you know what I mean? But you can't deny how amazing those songs are and what impact they've had.
Right.
And so for me, I know I've been told plenty of times that I'm not the most positive person. I know I'm kind of self-aware enough to know that I can be negative, and it's something that I fight and I try. And I noticed that I would write these lyrics, not all my lyrics, but mostly the ones where I was trying to like be positive, and it was almost like I was giving myself a pep talk. You know, it's almost like you write these words out, and it's less about speaking to anyone else, but a lot about speaking to yourself, and maybe trying to. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience, like if that's something that you could relate to at all. Like, and I'm not saying for anything specifically. I'm just, coming from someone who's trying to write lyrics and a lot of times trying to fill up a record. It's like, I gotta write something to fill this music now.
Right.
And you end up, going into weird places.
Yeah. So I'll lead with a story. I was talking to this dude who was in shelter. And we were like kind of in someone's backyard, and we were kind of chatting over a fire pit. And he was talking about how much he doesn't like Ray Cappo. And he said this to me as if he was delivering like this ancient wisdom to me. And I remember just thinking like, well, yeah, of course. But then like realizing like, oh, this isn't obvious to people. So what he said to me was, yeah, the thing about Ray Cappo is like, you look at all those songs that he wrote, and that isn't who he is or who he was, it's who he wishes he could be. And he said it to me like it was this like super profound shit. And I was like, well, yeah, man, like you think that song Honesty by Youth of Today, you think like not just Ray Cappo, but you think everyone in the world is like honest 100% of the time? No, like that's the reason the song is written.
Right.
And like I look at kind of like ethics-based hardcore, like songs that have kind of like almost like a morality tale to it. I view these things as being aspirational statements. And like maybe the person who wrote it wasn't writing it with themselves in mind, but like, okay, like look at the song Envy by Youth of Today. I'm positive that's about Ray Cappo being envious of his friends, not about his friends being envious of him, but him being envious of others.
Yes, I would agree. Yeah.
Like, dude, how fucking cool is that? You're writing songs admitting, I wish I was like that. I'm working towards being like that. I want to become that. And like, I think that's like one of the most noble things a person can do is like put their shit out there and be like, hey, I think this is a good way of living, and I'm going to aspire to be like that. Because what's baked into that reasoning is, and obviously I'm not going to be successful 100% of the time. I'm going to fall down, but I care enough that I'm willing to put this out, these words out, and try and live by that code and get better and better at doing that. I think it's infantile to look at hardcore and punk and like write a song and be like, oh, that's what that person's about. No, it's like that's what that person wants to be about. That's what they aspire to. That's what they hope to grow into and get better and better at doing that. So I've definitely written lots of lyrics that are about being a certain way, but it's because I aspire to being like that. And I hope I am each day and each year better at being that way than I was the day of the year before.
Right. And I only bring it up because I don't really hear people talk about it. I would agree with everything you just said. I think it almost feels like a dirty little secret. And maybe you realize it and I realize it because we're the guys writing the lyrics a lot of times. But I don't know if people in general realize that, and like you said, he said it like it was some deep wisdom. And when it occurred to me, it was almost like, I think I knew it a lot of times all along, but to actually realize it and say it out loud and talk about it with someone else are two different things. So I think you're right. Like it's it's not, it doesn't make sense to put people's words on them as if it's a reality. A lot of times, you know, like no one's 100% gonna live up to what they write, but the important part is that they're trying to live up to it, you know.
Yeah, and for the most part, like, I mean, so you got some singers who write lyrics and then they're fucking dirtbags or idiots outside of what they do, and their lyrics are all about integrity and blah blah blah. But I also just say, like, maybe that's just what we're seeing. Like, you don't know how they feel like on their own when they're like kind of like reviewing how they act, and if they're beating themselves up, and if they're like, fuck, I don't want to be like that anymore. That's what I wrote that song about. Like, I don't know.
I was gonna say, I think that's a big part of it.
Hardcore is like vulnerable like that, and that's what I think is cool about it. But like, let's not fool ourselves. Like, you know, people are people, and just because someone says like honesty, that motherfucker's probably lying through his teeth half the time. He's trying to not do it.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if we went into too much of a weird place, but
no, man, I love it. I love it. I'm going to say something about 10-yard fight at the end of the podcast, and you can cut it out if you don't like it.
Oh no, you know, go ahead.
Well, okay. There's something I've noticed since I've come to know you, and we've only gotten to know each other a bit over the years, but I can say that every interaction I've ever had with you, I really like you. Like, I just think you're a really, really good guy, real honest. I've never found you negative. I just think you're just a normal guy that has ups and downs. One thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if this is true, it's just my interactions, is you seem to like downplay a 10-yard fight a lot. And 10-yard fight was sick, man. Like, 10-yard fight was like not just a big band at a time, but you guys actually got out there and toured. You brought a style of music. You were part of bringing a style of music back to a forefront, a style of music that's like really near and dear to my heart. And then while like a contemporary, like let's say Floor Punch, has continued to like shine and will probably always shine because they're Floor Punch. You know, those records are like those perfect examples. They're great records. Yeah. They're well written. They're cool, but they're also like, they're harder. Like, things that are like harder and kind of like meaner are always going to bubble up to the surface of this culture for sure, right? Like, they'll always stay well loved, and that's why like Breakdown is always liked. And by the way, I'm speaking only in the highest standards of Floor Punch because I love them. But like a band like 10-Yard Fight is going to go in and out of like the social consciousness of being like a cool band, but that doesn't mean that 10-Yard Fight's not a cool band that entire time. 10-Yard Fight are a cool band. You're a great vocalist. I think you wrote great lyrics. They were like funny. They were real. They're human. They're just cool, man. And they were unique in a way. 10-Yard Fight is always a cool band. It just might not be in the social consciousness of hardcore always as a cool band. And I don't know how you feel about 10-Yard Fight, but in our interactions, it seems like you've kind of like downplayed it a bit whenever we've spoken.
Well, I guess I just don't want to be that guy who's just full of himself. I mean, I love 10-Yard Fight. I love playing those songs. I had the best time ever a couple years ago at This Is Hardcore. I would have been I always had this thing where I didn't want to do, I don't know. I have a weird thing where anyone that would have given us shit for playing a reunion because we weren't all straight edge, I could not agree with them more in a sense, because I don't like going and seeing like quote unquote straight edge bands who haven't lived up to it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But in the same respect, I love those guys in the band and I wanted to go out and have fun with them. So I understand why people do it, but it's not something that I can just like, I have a hard time with it as a fan. Fan sounds like a stupid term, but as a fan of the music, I don't know how else to say it, but so for me to do it was like just a selfish thing, and I wouldn't fault anyone for talking shit on it. But in general, I love 10-Yard Fight. I just don't. It's one of those things where, I think a lot of it was we were in the right place at the right time. So like sometimes I feel like maybe people give us a little more credit than we deserve, but I I mean, I loved it. So I just don't want to be the guy who's, I just try to keep my ego in check, I guess.
I don't think you'll ever be that guy, man. Tenured Fight will always be a cool band. And again, whether or not the culture is in that space where it will be a cool band is, like that, all those things are cyclical. They go in phases. Tenured Fight's always a cool band. Who in the band is still straight edge? It's just you, right?
It's just me at this point. Yeah. Yeah.
Man. Well, I can't fault you.
I mean, Aaron Dalbeck still is straight edge. So, and he was kind of in and out, he did some tours with us and he played with us a couple years ago. So, I mean, technically if we were going to play, he would probably be the one playing, one of the ones playing guitar. So, we'll count him.
Dude,
give us 2/5 anyway.
How sick is Dalbeck?
I mean, dude, that new record they put out, it's amazing. Oh, we didn't even talk about Change in your record.
Well, let's just stick with Dalbeck for a second. Dalbeck, if you're listening, I just love you. You're just a really good person. I really like you. I think you're a great dad. I think you're a very just loving person to your friends. And him and I aren't friends. We don't I don't have his phone number, but I just think he's a lovely person. So
yeah. As a
good for you, man.
Yes, no, I'm sorry. As a person, he's a great guy. He's amazing. All those things you just said. But to go right from Bane into Be Well, I don't even, what Bane 25 years or so, right? Into Be Well which is arguably probably the best record that came out this year. I mean,
yeah. Well,
I mean, next to Change, of course.
Well, no, but the humility to be in a brand new band, and even though it's a band with some heavyweights in it, the humility of being in a new band. And I love that. I don't hate on anyone who does reunions. And I definitely have changed my tune on that. And not just because Betrayed did a reunion, but I don't know. I've just gotten older and I just feel the rules that existed when you and I were young, it's bands don't do reunions, don't make money off your band, this or that. It's that's all changed. It's all just a different game right now. Sick of it all. We're the band that figured out how to making a living out of being a band while staying cool, right. And they did something and continue to do something that is so cool. They're just a cool band, cool guys. And that has kind of spiraled out where other people do it. And some people are cool and awesome kind of career hardcore bands. Some people suck, whatever. But with that, reunion shows come in. Some people are cool. Some people suck. GB, I've never seen GB suck. GB kills it every single time. And only Civ is straight edge as far as I know.
Right.
But they kill it every single time. They're great to watch. They make people happy. But there are other bands that are less fucking cool. And they are sometimes good and sometimes they're not. And sometimes they're shitty and sometimes they're not as people. And I just feel there's no right or wrong anymore when it comes to that stuff. And I think punk is rulesy enough as it is. There's too many rules in punk.
I'd agree. I think for me, it's just such a personal, the straight edge thing is I have such weird feelings. I mean, on one hand, it's it's personal. Do it for yourself, not for anyone else. And then on the other hand, I'm I can't get into the band that's singing full on straight edge songs when no one's really even straight edge. But then I'll go on, but I want to do my own reunion at the same time. And so, it's all personal, so it's I can't fault anyone for getting into any of it or at the same time not getting into any of it.
Dude, totally, man. All right. So I took you off about Tenured Fight. What were the other questions you had?
I mean, I think that's close. I mean, I did want to ask you about Change a bit, even just more on a personal level. I'm just curious about, so you sing for Change and the guys, how involved are you in the musical part of it? Are you writing songs or is it kind of a group effort? And so I guess just to back up, tell me who are the members? Cause I think the people who wrote the record are a little different from the guys playing. Is that still the case? I know that was at one point.
Yeah. Well, so there's a way I'd lay it out. Change is a bunch of people. The live band is me, Chris Williams, who was in Champion with me, Jeff Caffey, who is an odd man out in Angel Dust, Mike Urich, who is in Applewhite and Punitive Damage, who totally rock on guitar, and then Matt, who's on bass, and he is in Lower Species and End of Days. And so that's the live band. The band that recorded the record were me, a guy named Alex, who also plays in Punitive Damage, a guy named Carl, who plays guitar and sings in a band called Applewhite and plays bass in a band called Tilted, and a guy named Dave Mitchell, who was in Blue Monday, he was in Burden, he's in Keep It Clear, and he's in Applewhite and Tilted as well. And Carl and Alex were both in Keep It Clear as well. There's a bunch of other hardcore bands. And basically what happened was I wrote the songs, except for one of them. Dave wrote the song Refraction musically. Okay. I wrote all the songs musically. And then, but it's not fair to say I wrote them because, like, yes, I wrote them. Like, I came in with the riffs and the ideas and the general structure. But, like, as a band, we wrote and rewrote those songs. Right. Like, we tore them all down. We rebuilt them. And, like, every single song is imprinted by every single guy that recorded on that record. And so, like, I can't really say, like, oh, I'm not the Walter in this situation. Like, right. I definitely, like, wrote the songs, but, like, without those guys, the record wouldn't sound how it sounds. So it was really written as a group. I wrote the lyrics and, like, obviously, like, how the vocals went in and everything. And then we recorded everything, and then the song stayed dormant for a really long time. And I went back to record them, to do the vocals on them, like, years after they've been recorded. And at that point, like, the other guys in the band, like, the band was in their taillights. Like, they're all still straight edge. They're all still into hardcore and all that kind of stuff. But, like, it's weird going back to a band when a group of friends has been through, like, a tough situation. And, like, I just felt like it felt like the band had just become my band. And it was kind of quote unquote my band beforehand. Like, I drove all the action with it, but it felt like it really was just my band. And then also, like, me and one of the guys were still definitely friends. Like, we definitely would consider each other friends, but, like, it's one of those things where you're like, we're butting heads pretty heavily, and we're butting heads for what I think are totally appropriate reasons, like creative process, different personalities, like friendship, that we've been friends for a long time. They're just, like, appropriate, normal reasons that people get into a difficult space. But it was like, it impacted our personal relationship. And, like, I think we just realized, like, hey, we can't be in a band together. But what I will say is, like, you know, the record came out and it's been, you know, it's done well. Like, people seem to like it. Yeah. And it's been cool because those guys have been supportive. Alex, the drummer, actually played played 3 shows with us because Jeff couldn't be there. And, like, I think it's, like, I still consider those guys a part of the band. They're not, like, history. And I also feel like, you know, there might come a time where that lineup plays together. Like, I might I'm open to writing songs with those guys again. Like, again, it's like, dude, I'm 46. Like, it's not like, oh, we're not playing a band together, I'm never talking to you again. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, you know, these guys are my friends. So that's what happened with the band. Record came out in September. I mean, for anyone who hasn't heard the record, like, either you're going to hear it and be like, yeah, that makes sense, that came from Aram and those people, or you're going to hear it and be like, wow, like, that's not what I was expecting. I mean, it's like any record, you're either going to like it or not like it.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great.
Thanks, man.
I mean, I think pretty much everything you've done. And I gotta say, I'm so fucking jealous that, because I can't play an instrument to save my life. Because I always, you know, I would love to do bands, but, you know, I can't. All I can do is what I can do. So if I had the talent to just sit and write songs, I don't think, you know, I would just sit in a room by myself probably and make music and never, who knows if I would even play it for anyone. But
dude, you got to play in a band again. Like, you are such a sick vocalist, man.
Well, if you're if you know anyone who wants to write me some songs, man, I'm down. If you ever want to.
All right, that's the focus of 2021. Wrench in a band again.
Yeah, if you can put the word out, I don't know.
All right, man.
But yeah, man, we've talked for a while. I should probably let you go. I said I was going to respect your time, and hopefully I have. You know, it's been almost 2 hours. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you want to do you want to touch on anything, other than, obviously I want to ask if there's anything you want to plug or put out there as far as where people can find you, but if you have anything else you want to say.
I got a couple of things. So anyone who's interested in what I do professionally, it's cadenceleadership.ca. And the thing that would be really cool is check out the podcast. Please subscribe to it because that makes a difference. And then also please check out our YouTube channel. I've been putting a lot of effort into that. And if you subscribe to that YouTube channel, it would really mean a lot to me. Like the videos, all that kind of stuff. I'd really appreciate it. And I do believe there's stuff of value on there. So that's just not me asking you to do me a solid. Musically, definitely check out the Change LP. It's 13 songs. It came out on React. The LP is called Closer Still. And if you just look on Spotify, Change Closer Still, you should be able to find it. Unlike my ancient friend, Anthony here.
God. I put in Change and it came up with, it wasn't coming up with your band. It was coming up with some different things. And totally. I had to text you. I'm like, dude, help me out. I feel super old.
All right. But
go ahead.
Sorry. Well, the thing that I wanted to leave with people is I've really been trying to be more purposeful when I speak. And I hope I didn't dominate the conversation too much. Cause
no.
I actually try and drive podcasts a bit more to get to where I want to go.
Oh no, you were great. You were great.
And the reason is this: I don't know how much longer I'm going to be on the planet. I could live another 50 years. I could live another 5 minutes. I have no idea what's going to happen. I have become profoundly aware of time. And I just want, if someone takes the time to listen to something I say, like I'm on a podcast or I'm on, a YouTube video or whatever it is, I want them to feel like there's something that there's a value or an intrinsic value to them. And I could talk about my records or I could talk about the bands I've been in and all that kind of stuff. I want to engage in humanity and what it means to be a person, and especially what it means to be a person who's trying to move through the world and do stuff. And so what I want to leave people with, there is no second shot. If I don't know if people believe in an afterlife or any of those things, but it's an afterlife if that's what you believe in. This is it. Life is just shot. If there's something you believe in, whether it's hey, I want to play in a hardcore band or I want to learn how to play guitar, then go learn how to do that thing and do it now. If you're hey, I want to become a better person. I want to, I want to be honest. I want to be honest, but get into honesty, whatever it is, then go do it. But when I said earlier, surround yourself with successful people, be a successful person. It doesn't mean that you have to be the CEO of a company. You don't have to win awards. You don't have to be the first in a triathlon, but be successful by doing something that you believe in and doing it really, really well. Don't wait. Don't make excuses. But most of all, don't let your own fear of really becoming who you can be keep you from doing it. And don't let the criticism of other people do it. There's enough bad shit that's happening in the world. Be one of the bright spots.
Dude, 100%. That was amazing. I respect you so highly, especially the podcast that you've been putting out. I mean, I aspire to conduct myself the way that you do on your podcast. And I mean that very honestly and genuinely. I mean, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. I'm not always the most well-spoken, and I'm just super impressed by you in general. So
thanks, brother. I appreciate that. And I feel the same about you. And the last is, dude, check out Don't Stand in Line. What a great, what do you call it? A docu-series? I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, definitely. But thank
it's
you,
totally
man.
Killer, man.
Thank you for your time. And I hope to talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks, brother.
All right. Thank you. All right, I hope you all enjoyed that conversation with Aram. If you haven't already, please make sure to go over to codecprojects.com, codecprojects.com, and check out everything we have going on over there. The Don't Stand in Line docuseries is still up for sale. It's also available for rent for a 72-hour rental period. So If that's a little bit more up your alley, definitely go check that out. If you get a chance, please leave us a rating and review in iTunes or Spotify or wherever you're listening to this. It really helps build awareness and would mean a lot to me. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube at codecprojects.com. We're actually over at Facebook. We have a Facebook group going now for anyone who's interested in entrepreneurship or just kind of doing their own thing. You might want to go check that out. It's a pretty cool resource. And thanks again. See you next week.